Hey, there's a great improv game called Countdown where you have a certain amount of time to do a scene or tell a story, and then you have to redo that in shorter and shorter periods of time. It's a lot of fun. It's very high energy. It's usually got a lot of people. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can play it by yourself. Hey, there's an improv game called Countdown, which is a lot of fun. It's very high energy. You tell a story or do a scene first, and then you have to redo it in shorter and shorter periods of time. It's high energy. It's fun. I'm going to show you how to do it by yourself. There's a great game called Countdown. It's improv comedy. You do things shorter period of times, and I'm going to show you how you can play it by yourself. So that was a quick little snippet of an improv game called Countdown. It's a lot of fun. It's very high energy. And yes, it's usually done with a lot of people. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can play it and practice it all by yourself. Hey, my name is Avish Parashar, and for 28 years, I have been studying, teaching, and performing improv comedy. And for the past 17 to 18 years, I have had a business where I use improv comedy as a tool to teach individuals and organizations how to think quickly on their feet, respond to change, be more creative. And through this process, right now, we're in August of 2020 during a global pandemic. What I've been doing for the past 5 months is figuring out how to adapt all those improv games, which usually have other performers, an audience, people who are controlling, volunteers from the audience coming up, figure out how to do all of those things totally solo in a virtual format with no audience, no partners, no nothing. And today, I'm going to share with you how you can play the improv game Countdown all by yourself. Now, before I get into how you can do that, if you could, right below here, if you could click that little subscribe button on YouTube, and after you do, click the little bell next to it to make sure you get notified whenever I post a new video about how to perform improv, how to do it solo, how to apply ideas from improv off stage, or just something fun. So the improv game Countdown, or the name I first learned of it was Diminishing Returns, but most people call it Countdown. What you do is, usually it's a scene, and you have 2 or 3, maybe more performers act out a scene in about 1 minute with a timer. Then what you do is you redo that scene. So it starts in 1 minute, and then you redo that scene in 30 seconds where you're doing the same kind of action, interaction. And then you redo it in 15 seconds, and then you redo it in 5 seconds. Now, that's one way. There are variations where maybe you start at 90 and cut it in half. I've done some where after the 5-second version, you redo it in 10 seconds backwards or something goofy. But basically, the gist is you start with a scene, then you redo it in half the time, then half the time, and then less time. And this is a fantastic game because when done right, it is funny, it's high energy, and it's a big crowd pleaser. In fact, when I ran my improv group for 7 years in Philadelphia, we used to end many shows with this game because it was always high energy. And even if the first scene is a little slow and doesn't make the audience laugh that much, the very fact of reducing the time and cutting it, increasing the energy, always made the last couple scenes a lot of fun, no matter how good or bad the first one was. So what I'm going to do now is, before I get into explaining how you can play this both in general and solo, here's a demonstration. Here's a clip of me playing Countdown solo so you can see what it's all about. So that's all there is to it. I got my phone ready with my timer, and I'm going to start with a suggestion of an activity, something physical, something where you use your hands a lot. So I'm going to go with juggling. So I'm going to give you a lecture on how to be a great juggler. Here we go. To be a great juggler, there are really 3 main steps you have to do. Number 1, you have to be very limber and warmed up. So warm up your arms, get your arms really flapping, flap like a chicken, right? This is like the juggling chicken technique to get the blood flowing and loosened up. There are so many juggling injuries. If you're not limber, it won't work. Number 2, you want to practice throwing the ball as high as possible. Now I've got 3 balls in the air. They're still up there. I got lots of time to think. Oh, there's 1. Oh, there's 2. Now I got lots of time to throw this one up. Well, there's the other one that I got time. So the more time you have, the better you do. So really work on your muscles after you're limber so you can throw the ball up as high as possible. The third thing you need to do to be a great juggler is to sneeze. The more you sneeze, the better you'll be. And you might be wondering why. Well, watch. When you throw the balls up, you go, achoo, achoo, achoo. What I'm doing is I'm blowing the air up, pushing the ball back up, slowing its descent, giving me more time. So the stronger and more you sneeze, the more updraft you create, the better you are as a juggler. So to summarize, the 3 keys to being a great juggler. Number 1, warm up, limber up. Number 2, throw them high. Number 3, sneeze. That's exactly 1 minute. Okay. So that's the 1 minute version. Now what I'm going to do is set my stopwatch for 30 seconds. We're going to do the same lecture with the same key points in 30 seconds. And here we go. Hey, to be a great juggler, there are really three things you need to do. Number one, you got to warm up. Get your limber and warmed up because there's so many injuries. So flap like a chicken to get the blood going to avoid any injury when juggling. Number two, you want to throw the balls as high as you possibly can because that gives you lots of time. You can catch and then throw, and then catch and then throw. Lots of time. Number three, sneeze. Sounds weird, but watch. Hachoo, hachoo, hachoo. Keeps the balls up, keeps them floating, slows them down. You get more time. So number one, stretch. Number two, throw high. Number three, sneeze. Time. All right. So that was the 30-second version. Now I'm going to reset my timer for 15 seconds, and we'll see what happens there. Ready and go. There are three keys to being a great juggler. Number one, warm up like a chicken to get the blood flow to keep you safe. Number two, throw them really high. It gives you a lot of time in between balls. Number three, sneeze. Hachoo, hachoo, hachoo. Create an updraft, which keeps the balls going. So if you do those three things, you will be an amazing juggler. Time. All right, now we're going to cut that down to 5 seconds. Same lecture, same key points, 5 seconds to be a great juggler. Ready and go. To be a great juggler, number one, warm up. Number two, throw high. Number three, sneeze. Achoo. Time. And that, my friends, is countdown on how to be a great juggler. So that was an example of a Soloprov version of the improv game Countdown. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, in the comments below, go ahead and write the word DING, D-I-N-G. If you want to know why, it's because it's an improv game called Ding that I build my whole brand around. My website is dinghappens.com. It's my keynote. So write the word DING if you enjoyed that countdown. If you didn't, you can just sort of keep that to yourself, if you know what I mean. So hopefully you had fun. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you 3 keys to playing the improv game Countdown in general, if you have other partners, but also specifically what you can do to do it solo. Key number 1 is the setup. The way you set this game up and the way you do the 1-minute version impacts the rest of it. So number 1, when you start with a suggestion, whether you are getting suggestions from an audience, coming up with them yourself, like I did in the Soloprov, or if you're just starting something, you want to do 2 things. Number 1, take something physical. This game is fun because the shorter and shorter it becomes, your physicality gets a little bit more chaotic and frenetic. If you start with a suggestion of an activity that's something very simple, like stamp collecting, it's a very small motion. You're going to be relying so much on the verbal. And the physical and nonverbal is such a huge part of improv and getting the audience engaged and laughing that you want to start with a physical thing. So juggling, baton twirling, fishing, knitting. Knitting's a bit smaller, but you can make it bigger. Along the same line, with the setup, whatever suggestion you take, even if you mess up and don't take a big physical one, as you go through it, you want to do big physical motions. Move a lot, because the more you move, it's going to give so much more energy and fun to the shorter versions, right? I remember doing this in a show once, and the suggestion we had was something physical, but the performers on stage spent the first like 30 seconds just engaged in dialogue. And I was like, stop trying to be funny. Stop trying to dialogue. Let's get some energy and motion, because that's what makes the replays work. So number 1, the setup. Take an active suggestion and then move a lot to make it more engaging. And that's whether you have multiple performers or whether you're doing it just yourself. Number 2, think in terms of beats, right? Sometimes it's easier if you think in terms of the end, like the 5-second or 10-second version, and then build it back out. So what you want to do, what I did here in this example, is a lecture with 3 key points. And 3 is a nice number for beats. And so if you're going to do it as a lecture, think of your 3 key beats. What are the 3 reasons? Now, you don't even need to have these up front. When you start the 1-minute version, you don't have to know, oh, here are the 3 things I'm going to do. Just as you go through it, try to think of 3 distinct beats. And for each beat, have a different physical motion, right? So it could be like the first is warm up, so I'm going to do this. The second is to, dig into the ground, so I'm going to do this, right? The third is to think like a bird, so I'm going to flap my arms. Like whatever it is, but that's 3 different beats, and each has a different physical thing connected to it. Now that's going to give you 2 benefits. Number 1, it's going to increase the physicality and energy to make it more fun. Number 2, it's going to give your mind and body a physical visual clue for switching between. So when you go from 1 minute to 30 seconds, you'll remember, here are the 3 beats, here are the 3 physicalities. When you get to even the 5-second version, it's real quick. It's like stretch, grab, bird, boom. Now, what's interesting here is so many improv games are easier and more effective with multiple people. In some ways, a countdown lecture is easier solo because you can go through the beats in your own head, as opposed to silently, collaboratively communicating them with other people on stage. You lose the spontaneity of your partner throwing you in a different direction, which is unfortunate, but you gain the benefit of really going in terms of beats. So when you're doing this by yourself, not in advance, but as you're going, think beat, 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 about 15 seconds for each one, a little bit of buffer, a little bit of opening and close, and that's how you do the first minute scene, and then you just whittle that structure down to make it much, much easier. The third key to playing this game with others or solo is to hack away at the unessentials. This is a Bruce Lee quote, which I love. He says the key is to not excess. It's not addition, it's decrease. Hack away at the unessentials. And when I do this game as part of my presentations on speaking and business and training, I use this to demonstrate the idea of hacking away. When you do the 1 minute version, you're going to say a whole lot. You're going to have a lot of motion. And the temptation is going to be, when you replay it, to try to say and do all the same things you did, just a little bit faster. Now, when you go from 1 minute to 30 seconds, you'll be able to do that because there's a lot of quiet time and dead time, and there's enough room in there if you speed it up to get through it all. But when you get to 15 seconds, if you try to say and do everything verbatim, you're going to be very rushed, you're going to forget, and you're never going to get through it all. And 5 seconds, there's no way. Now, this is solo. If you're doing this with other people, and I've seen this happen so many times, when you're doing this with scene partners, if you try to do and say everything, it becomes a cacophony where everyone's just kind of talking over each other, trying to get their lines in. And also what happens is you end up front loading. So the first 30 seconds, you're getting through everything. Then all of a sudden you realize you're halfway through, and you're not even halfway through the story, but you're halfway through the time. And then you end up cutting out a bunch at the end. So what you want to do is pull out the stuff, distill down to the essence. This is where coming back to the idea of beats helps so much. Because if you think of beats, each beat can be said in one sentence. Going back to the example I use, it's like stretch out, dig in from the ground, flap your wings. Now that in 5 seconds, I could easily say, hey, the key to gardening is stretch, dig in the ground, and then flap your wings to get the airflow going. And that's how you be a great gardener. Boom, boom, boom. Right? Because I hack away the unessentials. Now, when I do the 1 minute, 30 seconds, I'm going to embellish. I'll say, oh, you got to stretch, because you got to really work the tendons and limbers out, and otherwise you get really injured. So what you want to do is remove all the excess and distill each thing down to the beats. Now, this is going to give you 2 benefits. Number one, just from playing this game, it's going to make the game tighter, more fun, clearer, and more high energy. But as you do this over time, it's going to increase your ability to quickly identify the story beats, right? Either as you're telling it or as you look back to replay. And this becomes really helpful in any kind of storytelling, but specifically in improv storytelling, because it'll give you a sense of where you are. Do you need to pivot? Do you need to tilt? How can you go back to an old beat, reincorporation? So there's so many skills that will get easier if you simply start understanding the story beats you're in and how you progress from one to the next. So those are the 3 keys to playing Countdown, both solo or in general if you have other people. If you like that video, again, please subscribe and click the little bell next to it. If you like this video and you know others who might, please go ahead and share it. And if you want more info, you want to keep the learning going, there are a couple links right there in the comments. Number one, I have a Facebook group called Motivational Improv, where I share more tips and ideas, both on Soloprov and improv performance, and also on how to take those and use those ideas off stage. And there's a link to my website where you can sign up and get some free downloads. And be sure to come on back, check it out, and we'll be posting a lot of content. So to summarize, Countdown, great game. It's one of the most fun games. I used to love playing it on stage with other people, but I'm having almost as much fun playing it solo. And the key to playing this game with others or Soloprov, number one, set it up right. Set yourself up for success with the suggestion and lots of physicality. Number two, think in terms of beats, not a rambling story, but boom, boom, boom. And number three, hack away at the unessentials. Each time you play it, don't try to say everything. Hack away the stuff. Keep distilling it down till you get just boom, boom, boom. Get it done. Have a lot of fun playing it. With most improv, the more fun you have, the more fun they'll have. Thanks for watching, and I look forward on seeing you on the next how-to video.